It looks like we were muted. Hello, hello, hello. This is going to be a little bit different from our soap shipping Saturday. I'm not on camera. But I was trying to figure out what the podcast was going to be for this week. If you are brand new to me, welcome. You're just looking at a computer screen, but no worries. I have some more information coming to you right now. But my name is Zakia Ringgold, and I am the creator of LiveSoapSchool.com as well as NaturalSoapByZakia.com. Hey, Yolanda, good to see you. So I had been looking through GarageBand, and it turns out, good morning, Big Duke, all the way from Baltimore. It turns out that I had recorded a podcast 2 years ago while I was home on disability leave. I don't know if you are new to me, I had ruptured my Achilles tendon, and I had did a live stream recording a podcast. And I listened to it and I said, well, it's kind of applicable today. And to see where we have gone since then has been pretty incredible. So you may be wondering, wait a minute, Zakia, how can we listen to this podcast? Well, it's available on Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Castbox, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Spotify, as well as just a simple old RSS. Additionally, you can always listen to my podcast and get the show notes by going over to livesoapschool.com/podcast. There is a featured podcast episode right there in the middle of the page. But without further ado, let's listen into my story on making soap while broadcasting live. I'm going to mute my microphone so we don't get double audio. But I'll be in the comments. If you have questions, this is like a different take on a podcast. This way, you guys can listen in, and if you have questions or feedback or thoughts, put them in the comments or send me a message, and maybe we'll make that our next podcast. You ready? Here we go. On the road. So, hello everyone. My name is Zakia Ringgold of Natural Soap by Zakia and LiveSoapSchool.com. And typically, if we were on a live video, I would probably be showing you a bar of soap. But because this is a podcast and you can't necessarily see me, you just have to imagine the most illustrious bar of soap ever. But this is going to be the start of our Soap Talk Nation. We already have Soap Nation. Now we need an opportunity to actually talk about it. And so what you're hearing is our very first attempt at me trying to get these thoughts out in a very cohesive and coherent manner. And a lot of you may not know me. Many of you do know me, but you don't really understand how this thing has come about. So this is my story, and I am sticking to it. So in about 2015, around July of 2015, there was an app that was out, and it was called Periscope. Periscope is tightly integrated with Twitter. When it first came out, it was its own application. Twitter did not own it, but it was integrated with Twitter, so you actually had the ability without any type of restrictions to click a button and your content would be seen by either people with the Periscope app or people who were on Twitter that were searching for whatever it is that you were putting out there. And so when I first got on the platform, very similar to any other platform that I get on, I watched, and it was very, very enamoring to watch. And I'm not sure if enamoring is the right word, but that's what we're going to use right now. It was very interesting to watch because there were people from all over the world, cultures that I had not seen, people that I had not seen, expertise that I didn't even know was a thing at the time. And so as I watched it, my own curiosity started to fuel my interest in what it is that I was seeing. And so as I was doing that, I said, well, what if I got a chance to show people what it was like to live a day in the life of? That was pretty much how it got started, because I felt like there were so many other moms out there where you're just going and going and going, and it's like a never nonstop kind of thing, and you just feel like people don't know what they don't know. And I said, if they only knew what it was like to get up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning and not really actually lay down again until 11 or 12 o'clock at night, what would that be like for people to see that? And would it change some of the perceptions? And then also at the time, whenever I would turn on the news, whenever I would turn on the television, whenever I would scroll through even social media, which is supposed to be the people's media, it was such a negative light on everything. And it was just not my reality in terms of different cultures, in terms of Black people, in terms of white people. That was just not the way that I saw reality. So I figured I could do walk with me's. Number one, walk with me's were, and sometimes you guys saw that. I think that was the first live stream that I did on Facebook. And I would do those walk with me's, and people would just show up and they would ask about what was happening around me. And my goal for the walk with me's was more so to say, you might have saw that on the news, but this is actual reality for people who actually live here. Like Philadelphia at the time was being known as Killadelphia. And maybe there were a lot of murders that were happening. And not maybe, there were definitely murders that were happening. But for the 1% of negativity that is shown by the media, there is so much more good that is missed by the media. So a part of me doing Walk With Me's was to try and change that perception. And at the same time, I had just saw or started listening to Dick Gregory. And what he had said in one of his talks was that media is the most powerful tool on this planet. And I didn't get it at the time, and I now completely understand it. And while I was doing that, I was picking up this hobby of soap making. And that is how soap making actually makes its way into this story. And when you're broadcasting live, it's kind of difficult to figure out what it is that you actually want to show, because sometimes there are some things where it's like, man, if people would actually see this part. And then at the back of your mind, you're like, well, are you trying to live in truth? Hey, Mish Clark, we're actually recording a podcast, so you'll be on the podcast because I said your name. And just for the people that are on this podcast, if you are listening, I had to find a way to be comfortable with this. And a way that I'm comfortable is in front of the camera. So by me being in front of a live audience, it's easier for me to actually have that audience there while I'm doing this talk, but whatever. So going back to the soap making part, what ended up happening was I would just demonstrate my hobby of making natural soap. At that time, it was nothing more than a hobby. And when I tell you, I went from having 2 to 12 people watching to almost 100 people on a broadcast, it was absolutely mind-boggling. I was like, this is just me doing something that I like to do. And what ended up happening was my content started to shift at the same time that I started to get very interested in building websites, understanding how social media worked, understanding this whole idea of funnels and all of that, because it was a business model that I had never, ever, ever seen before. And that was the thing. I had always saw it, but if you don't have your eyes open, there is a chance that you are going to miss what's right in front of you. Because a part of what I do is working on developing training programs. That's a part of through and through for at least the last 12 years. That is what I've done. And what I thought was regular business was actually internet marketing in disguise. What they do is they take exactly what entrepreneurs do in the public sector or people who aren't a part of a company, and they apply that to corporations. So what I mean by that is you go to conferences. I can't tell you how many conferences I have been to in the corporate space. And what do? You give them your email address. And when you look at what is happening with internet marketing, 9 times out of 10, depending on the website that you go to, they're going to ask you for your email address. And then they're going to ask you for testimonials on what it is that you did. And what do they do with those testimonials? They sell somebody else with what you have just told them about how awesome or how fantastic or how incredible that service was. And so it started to click for me that even though I kept saying, I don't understand this business model, we're all living in that business model in one way, shape, or form. And in order for us to really, you have to, when people say you have to be aware, there is so much power in being aware of what is happening around you. That includes people, that includes places, that includes just seeming coincidences that start to show up. Because when you are aware of those things, you don't miss them. And depending on where you are in your life at that time, it can mean one of a million things. There's a reason why two people can look at the exact same movie or the exact same book and come out with two completely different outcomes. Because depending on where you are, that is going to shape the lens that you're looking at whatever it is that you see. So for 10 or 12 or let's see, I don't want to give away my age. I'm less than 40, older than 30. How about that? But for at least 15 years, I was in the mode of, I have to get this done. I have to be the best that I can be for whoever it is that I am working for or whatever kind of work that I am doing. And so everything that came to me was in that particular lens or that particular vein of how can this apply to the company? How is that going to then bolster or make something better for that particular company? So going in that vein, I could see why seeing those emails that come through and say, hey, check out this free webinar on the latest and greatest training technology. Oh, I got to check that out. And then you have the community of people around them that says, oh, by the way, when I went to XYZ, I then got this particular promotion because it was so successful. So that's giving you your social capital. So I started to see the very clear things that seemed like it was so alien at the time become very, very transparent of it wasn't alien, it just didn't apply to what it was that you were attempting to do. So basically, as I was seeing this, and it kind of just unfolded, and I'm watching it from like an outside space. It wasn't actually me seeing it. It was me seeing it from looking outside of myself. And I know that sounds strange, but it's like for the very first time, I saw that all of this was right there in front of you for forever, pretty much. And so what ended up happening was I started really, really studying with a very different perspective. And that perspective was, how do you create something from scratch with no following, like zero, like nobody knew who Zakia was at that time. And I am not being certain, like nobody knew exactly who I was. Look at the new 31 looking 21 soap lady. Hey, Lorraine. Hey, Tina. So I'm going to have to actually edit this now because I'm talking to you guys. We're live doing a podcast recording for just trying to figure out where this thing is going to go. And I'll listen back to it and see how I like it or how I don't. But you guys are watching it live, so even if I don't like it, you can at least see that you saw a part of it. And what we're doing is we're attempting to figure out where this podcasting journey is going to go. And hopefully somebody gets a little something out of it by watching me do it live and seeing that, hey, it's not that hard. It's not that hard at all. Pretty much nothing in life is that hard. We make it hard. And that's another lesson that I learned. So on to the Natural Soap by Zakia. That was born from constantly live streaming late at night when the kids were asleep, sometimes not sleep. And people started asking the same question over and over and over again. How can we buy it? Where do we get it? How can we buy it? Where do we get it? And mind you, at this same time, I'm studying internet marketing, which is just marketing with the term internet in front of it, because you're using the internet in order to get your content out. And so it was just a very natural progression. And I have curiosity. I typically start every project on, can I do it? Will I be successful? Which can be problematic because a very large part of me always says no. But then there's a little person in me that says, you better try it. And so it's kind of dangerous to always start projects that way because I'm already behind the 8 ball when I'm asking myself that question of, can I be successful in something? Because I'm already planting the seed of, no, you can't be successful. And so with the internet marketing piece that was going on and the growing attention that I was getting, I always say yes. No, I have sorry guys, again, I'm going to have to edit this podcast. I still have here guys, let me show you. This is something Mish reminds me of all the time. And it says, if they can do it, so can I. All right, I digress. But that's what's currently on my cell phone. And so I taught myself how to build websites. I went and I purposely started looking for any videos, any blogs, any groups that I could join that would teach me how to build websites because I had a problem. I had a product that I was making. I couldn't give it away to 1 million people if I wanted to because guess what? It wouldn't work that way. And then also, I needed a website in order for people to be able to get it easily, simply, without me having to say, oh, well, if you email me, we can do a money order. And then in about 16 weeks, you'll get that's not the way it works. And I was walking around with a smartphone being a dumb person is what was happening and at the same time, I would look around at Nyla and her friends and even Paige, and all day long they are on the cell phone. They're on these devices. And I said, well, if I am able to understand this form of technology and I can teach Nyla, which then turned into after school programs, which then turned into Paige having her own group of people that send her stuff from her Amazon wish list. Like it just completely shifted what I was attempting to do with Natural Soap by Zakia. Initially I was just making soap and having something to broadcast about. And at the same time, I was trying to fuel myself with positivity. And because there was so much negativity that was surrounding me at the same time. So long story short, Natural Soap by Zakia has become very, 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 very successful. And I don't want people to think when I say very, 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 very successful that I mean we now have $1 million enterprise, because that is not my interpretation of success. I don't equate dollars to success. It's a litmus test, but that's not what success for me is. And there's a lot of people who, and I can say a lot of people because they're in my inbox asking me, and I'll always say, well, why do you want to do it? And they're saying, well, I just want to make money. You can make money doing anything. Why are you choosing that particular thing that you are choosing to make money from? If it seems easy, you're probably choosing the wrong thing. And so a lot, and I always caution myself when I am having those interactions, because I never want to deter anybody from what it is that they're trying to do. Because I think there has to be more of an intent behind what you're doing that's bigger than you. And so I can't necessarily offer the help that some people want, because I don't think that what one person does can be easily replicated by somebody else and get the exact same results. And so it's hard. Growth makes you successful. You are very successful already. Yes, the personal growth that I have gone through on this has been a 360 would be wrong. So is it a 180 from who I was when I first started? It's been a 180-degree turn. I look at things with a whole new lens now that I probably wouldn't have done before. I see things from a positive light much more quickly than I would a negative light. I've been out of work now for 3 months, and any other time I would have been in shambles when that happened. But it really, truly, truly gave me a chance to sit back and observe. And again, that whole concept of remaining aware, remaining grateful, and all of that really started to shine through as I sat on a couch for a long time. So I'm digressing, and I'm not really sure where this is going, but I guess I want to start with where I came from. And where I came from was a basement. And the understanding where you come from is going to be very, very important, so that number one, you don't latch on to it. And number two, you know where you're going. And in that basement, I actually have a video where I was trying to and here is I'm digressing again, but this is important because it just popped in as I said I came from the basement. It's amazing how when I was in the basement, the very first time I made soap, I was actually behind a camera. And you know why I was behind a camera? Because I wanted to be able to see if I messed up, how it messed up, and be able to repeat exactly what I did if it worked out great. And to now look 3-ish years later to see that I'm now doing it this almost the same way. I still have the same table, the same shelves, the same, well, I've gotten several stick blenders since then. But to see how not much of that has changed, and there's never any coincidences. So me being behind the camera, it was just me recording with a Samsung at that time, and my head was cut off, and it was dark, it was dreary, but I was down there like a mad chemist at the time. So where I came from was the basement. What I think helped was I was a very, very early adopter of live streaming. What I think continues to help is my refusal to stop, refusal to give up, refusal to accept anything less. And so where this story is going to pick up the next time is how I noticed that live streaming made a huge impact on very, very different people with very, very different skill sets that are very, very complementary to one another. So I am Zakia with Soap Talk Nation. Thank you for listening. Bye. Oh, well, it switched me over. All right. Pause it. Hey everybody, so I'm trying to switch us over. Hold on, Paigey. Wait, you can't. You got it. You don't have clothes on. Hold on. Um. Okay, hold on. Let me come here. There we go. Hey everybody. So I'm actually in my kitchen with my hair twisted and all of that. So for all of you, live streaming is so important. You're kind of getting a different view into my soap studio. Thank you all for tapping that screen. Some of you were very, very engaged during that podcast. Good morning, Terry. Teal, very good to have you here. You know, my hair is looking a little cray cray, but this is what happens when you're in quarantine and can't go to the hairdresser. You got to do it yourself. So I'll have a twist out later today. But that podcast, I recorded that 2 years ago live on Periscope. So as we were, I opened up GarageBand for the first time on my laptop yesterday because I was working on another project, right? I was working on something else and I wanted to try and edit some stuff that I did in GarageBand on my iPad on my computer. And when I did that, that podcast was sitting there. And I listened to it. I said, man, this is applicable today. I had never published the podcast. So it was really cool. So what are we saying? Ann is saying, Zakia, I've been here since the beginning of time. Since the beginning of you making some soap on those broadcasts, I've been right here. Yes, do your hair. I have natural hair too. Yes, doing your hair is very important. I'm going to make it right now. Paige is telling me it's time for breakfast, so wrap this broadcast situation up. It's actually time for brunch. We're at 11. Brunch is where we have like virgin mimosas, which is just orange juice and ginger ale for you. Mom is going to have the real kind. And so the interesting thing is, as I listened to it, the entire time, there was a very specific reason why I broadcasted from day one. So July of 2015 is when I installed Periscope. Periscope had came out in March of 2015. And I was on some training group. I'm going to start this bacon. I was on some training group on Google Hangouts, which is long gone, right? So amazing how virgin mimosa. And what ended up happening, somebody mentioned in there, have you guys tried this new app called Periscope? And no, we hadn't. When I thought about it, I was immediately thinking Kaleidoscope. And when they said that, I downloaded the app, and that was in July. And I was just completely blown away initially because I saw, and remember, I come from the training space. And in corporate, it's like pulling teeth to get people to come to a training class. And I was watching, and there were all of these entrepreneurs who were on there saying, hey, I have this amazing training class. And people were like signing up, like chomping at the bit to sign up. But I realized that most people don't know how to teach people, which is why a lot of times when you go to these online training programs, it's a subject matter expert trying to get everything out of their head to you. And the problem is there's a science behind that. And I know that science because I'm an instructional designer, meaning I design training so that people can actually apply it. I started in June, found Scope via a lady's YouTube channel, Kaleidoscope. That's what I thought it was. Yeah. You best be squeezing oranges for your mimosa. Better get to squeezing. And so I started by just watching what they were doing. And then I said, well, I can help. And I always started with the I can help kind of thing. And when I said I could help, it was to be able to teach them how to teach so that people didn't turn around and say, hey, I want a refund. This didn't teach me anything. What I found is most people like to do it the way they like to do it and don't really want you saying you're doing it wrong. And that's when I was learning how to make soap. And I mentioned that on one of those empty broadcast. Like there was absolutely nobody. I used to have like maybe 5 people watching those broadcasts. And when I mentioned that, hey, I have this hobby of making soap, they were like, oh, can you show us how to do that? And my broadcast went from having 5 people to about 100 people live. Comments? No. Nope. I don't know what that's saying. I was trained by an instructional designer, so I create courses now that has been very beneficial to my clients. And there's also fraud, manipulation, invasion of privacy, etc., etc., etc. But what we're talking about is people who, I'm not talking about the bad characters that are developing training courses. That is not, you're always, especially now, people are taking advantages, right? They're taking advantage of it. But for those people who are genuinely trying to help the people who are buying into what it is they're selling, it's just a skill set. It's just understanding that there are adult learning principles. You can't teach adults the same way that you try to teach children. And you can't be the expert in something and then try and dump that all out in a way that's not cohesive that people are going to follow. But I digress. Then we moved into making the soap live. And that is when I saw that nobody cared about you talking about teaching. They wanted to see what that soap was going to do when you poured it in the mold. That's what they cared about, because when I went live with that, there was nobody else live streaming it at the time. My kids would be on the video with me, and I got to be myself. I wasn't trying to fit into a corporate box anymore. I wasn't trying to do the coulda, shoulda, woulda. I was doing it my way. And it was something so powerful about doing that. And a coworker who I'm not really cool with anymore was the one who planted the seed and said, hey, Zakia, can I buy, or how much would you charge me for a batch of that soap? Yes, I understand. Then that one lady who copied you right away. But here is the interesting thing about copying, and I want all of you to know this, feel it, and believe it. Whenever somebody you know how your parents taught you this in school, your teachers taught you this in school. Keep your eyes on your own paper. You have no idea what that other person is doing. You have no idea if you are coming in at the middle of the story, the beginning of the story, the end of the story. And what will end up happening is the same way when you're running a race, you can be all the way out in the front. You can be all the way out in the front. Then you do that. And then that person comes by and passes you because you have taken your eye off of what it is that you are on. And as long as anybody is copying you, guess what? They will always be behind you because they don't have the creative skills and the creative juices to be able to continue to create. So don't worry about it. I don't. It's kind of like what Josh always says to me is if you don't have haters, you're not popping. You're not popping. Keep your eyes on your own paper. Is this the same home you started making soap in? Yes. Very interesting topic, making soap, and it's a lost talent. Yes. Oh, the soap lady. Hey, that's my word. I use that word all the time. Exactly. Adult learning, so important. Go by the steps. That's true. Run your own race, guys. You're going to have so much more fulfillment when you do it that way. And everybody, and I try and get this out to people all the time. There is not a person on this planet that was not brought here with some unique skill, some unique gift, or some unique talent. And it's never going to look exactly like what the next person does because it's not supposed to. It's really not supposed to. Zakia, so did you give up on corporate America? Heck no! These skills work in corporate America the same way they work outside of corporate America. And just start your own business? No, I do them both. For a long time, I kept my soap life and my corporate life Very, very, very separate. I kept, so what's that right there? Do you know where two ways of taking somebody that copies from you? Correct. Hold on, where was that question? You can smell the bacon. Sorry about that light right there. Probably need to clean them. It's not really a good angle. Um, have you been listening to my? I have not, eclectic, but are you trying to say I'm copying you? I have not listened to you, ma'am or sir. But the one thing I also noticed is like attracts like. So you will generally attract that energy that you're putting out and that thing that you're saying to other people, if you truly believe it. But you also attract people who are not creative as well, that just are trying to look for the easy way out. Um, are you a corporate trainer? Because you said I am. I'm a well, I developed the programs for the trainers. This past month, my job has completely shifted to creating virtual learning experiences. Boy, you're a very busy woman. Much drive. Because I had initially it started with four eyes looking at me. That's my two daughters, Nyla and Paige. And as they were looking, I said, what is the example that I need to set for them? So a lot of I don't really want to talk about the depression part, but there was a time that I thought that maybe I wouldn't be here much longer. I'm past that time, so I'm going to say it out loud. And the idea behind these videos is that they would then be able to always see my face, see my smile, and have something to look at. That was the initial thinking behind live streaming. All the other stuff just ended up being a bonus. So what's my field? Leadership development and professional development. So what are those skills that leaders need to be effective with managing their employees? And then I also do strategic plans. So whenever there's a new strategic plan that comes out, I have to learn it and then create the training plan for how are we going to train employees? Is it going to be e-learning? Is it going to be instructor-led, in person? What kind of job aids do they need? Who are the subject matter experts who can actually provide that content? All of that. Very cool. Your example is what I'm witnessing right now. Very intelligent, confident, and logical. Here's the thing. I found that once you have a skill and understand your skill, because a lot of times there's a lot of microaggressions that happen in corporate America where you, or even in your personal life, where you start to second guess, well, do I really know what it is that I'm saying that I know? And people will reinforce that for you. And if you allow that, you will hear them saying your exact same words back to you in a way where it's like, wait, did I say that? And it starts to make you kind of crazy. I do speaker series for a nonprofit. I need some pink soap and purple soap. Can you supply 2 of each? Magnolia, I can. Ooh, do I have Magnolia? I don't know if I have Magnolia. That bacon is popping. I might need to turn it down. For their external affairs department of a nonprofit. So how are they shifting in the virtual world now? Because you know, with this whole social distancing, and that was the premise for Live Soap School. So aside from making handmade soap, I teach people how to make their own soap in Live Soap School. So I was able to blend my skill set from corporate America with learning and development and my passion of soap making to create Live Soap School, to create opportunities for people to start their own businesses or start a new hobby or find a way out of depression with soap making, because that's what it did for me. Exactly. Ask yourself the questions before you answer somebody's question. Oh, that's a good one. Paige, I'm about to burn your bacon live streaming. You might want some eggs to go with it. Don't ever just feed your kids meat. Give them something else. Ooh, oatmeal might be good too. Oatmeal is quick. I can put that in the microwave. But you guys are in front of my microwave right now. Baby powder. I do have a baby powder scent. Deidre, what you can do is send me a message on Natural Soap by Zakia. And then that way I can do a custom order for you. So why soap? I have no idea why it was soap. I'm reading a book and it's called Soul's Code. Um, and when I look back, I think I have always been an entrepreneur. I think it could have been juicing. It could have been any topic at all. The true thing that I am is a teacher. Even when I was a kid, I didn't like going outside. I didn't like being around people. I would be upstairs in my room. I would have a little chalkboard and I would have all my dolls and teddy bears lined up around around this chalkboard. I would hand them out my homework and pretend that I was the teacher to them. Um, Even when I was in school, I was an entrepreneur, not necessarily a teacher, but I was one of the only freshmen who had a car, and we were about 2 hours away from Philadelphia. And I charged people $15. And I would get 4 people in the car, and that would fill my tank up. And then I would also have some spending money for the weekend when I was home. So it would be $15 to come home and $15 to come back. About 7 years ago, um, I was trying to find a way to quit smoking cigarettes. And I had done all this research online and I found electronic cigarettes. And this was 7 years ago, before there were vape shops, before people could buy them in a 7-Eleven. And I had ordered them directly from China. There were, I would say, I worked at a law firm at the time, so it's more than 7 years now, 10 years, 10 years ago. Um, and so I ordered them from China. I did the research to make my own e-juice with no nicotine or with nicotine. And I was selling them to the lawyers. I was buying them for maybe $20. I was turning around and selling them for $150. And I was making this custom stuff. Then I got nervous about the FDA. The FDA, you keep losing the transmission. My email, Deidre, if you go to my website of naturalsoapbyzakia.com, it's an option in there for you to contact me. I can't give my email address on a live stream because that's how spammers and all of that get into your mailbox, and then I'm spending time just deleting junk. So if you go to the website and select Contact Zakia, it'll send a form for me. And you've integrated Zoom technology and Slack workspaces for work units, integrations, and scheduling. Is there any concern with the security on Zoom? So I was a natural. Darn it, we also have our members who don't have online access doing offline activities. Give me a call, Gal. You will have to scroll up, Zakia, to read everything I type to you. Or, Gal, send me a message either on Twitter, Natural Soap by Zakia, or Live Soap School. I would love to talk to you. Was that legal? It was. It was unregulated at the time. I actually was on an airplane vaping my e-cigarette, and the flight attendant at the time, she said, "Ooh, what's that?" And then maybe about a year to 2 years later, then the legislation caught up. Yes, Deidre, that's my email, or that's my website. So it was legal, but then this is where, and I think it was so critical and so pivotal for me to have that experience, because it made me start to look at the media. It made me start to look at the FDA. It made me start looking at all of these things with a different lens, because all the research I had done leading up to that was that people who used these e-cigarettes were quitting smoking. Now, you have to remember that if we're now buying these e-cigarettes, these tobacco companies who also have, I don't know, those lobbyists that pay for governors and different seats and different offices, even medical doctors at the time. So everything that I had read and my personal experience with it, not just this is what somebody said. I tried it, I made it, I used it, and it worked to help me to stop smoking cigarettes. However, I started seeing that the FDA was saying, hey, we're regulating this. We don't know how safe it is. People are killing their lungs. At the same time, the tobacco companies were trying to buy out these e-cigarette companies. It is actually FDA approved now because I remember they haven't even studied effects. All of that. So that happened and I got out of it. I said, you know what? I'm not really trying to be sued. I don't really have the science background to be able to back me up with this. So I'm going to let it go. A year later, I started seeing all of these vape shops. Like there wasn't a corner that I didn't turn and I saw it. And it was a constant reminder of see. Like that's how it felt. So when I started with the soap, I was determined because I knew there was never a time that I wasn't successful with something. Never. There has never been a time, even if it's a project that I had tried and didn't know anything about it in the beginning, that was a huge impact on me. And I feel like I went through that experience. And the same thing with the FDA. We're starting to feel it in the soap industry now. Same idea. These really large companies who have the lobbying dollars, the money for that, they're trying to figure out, wait a minute, people are opening their eyes to the ingredients that are being used on their skin. All these small businesses are now competing with these huge corporations that are paying lobbyists. Yeah, you have to remember also that once upon a time they said that cigarettes were healthy for you. Did you regret getting out or what? I did then, I do not now. I don't think I could with a good conscience. The way that I have the love and the passion for what it is that I do in that room with the soap, it wouldn't have been the same level of fulfillment that I have gotten with the soap. But I feel like there's never a coincidence. And I had to have that experience. I had to go through that. So I'm Zakia. If you all have not already, be sure to download my app, which is the Soap Live app. In here, there are recipes, there are tutorials. I'm actually live in there right now where you can chat with me before the broadcast, during the broadcast, and after the broadcast. And so I'm Zakia Ringgold. I hope you have enjoyed a little bit of my story. I promise the next time that we're live, my hair will be done. And I'll scroll up, see your comments. In my life, there are no coincidences or luck. It's pretty much preparation, prepared with opportunity when they both meet up. That's what I think. If I missed your comments, I will come back, watch the replay. If there was something that you wanted to reach out to me about, Gal, I would love to talk to you about what you are doing in the nonprofit space. Maybe I can share some of our lessons learned. You can share some of yours. I gotta go. I need some bacon, LOL. I'm lazy, but I buy mine already cooked. Have a good day, girlie. Be great and be safe. All of you, remember to wash your hands, wear your mask, use hand sanitizer, and if you don't have soap, you can head over to naturalsoapbyzakia.com and you can get the most luxurious, the most creamy, the most moisturizing. Where do you get the app? Sorry. So you can head over to, let me come here. So it's available on both the Apple Store as well as the Google Play Store. And I also have a link to it right here on Live Soap School. So you can go to my website, which is livesoapschool.com, and there's a link for you to download for iOS or download for the Android. And yeah, I don't know why it's just my hair on that picture right there. It's very interesting. So I'm Zakia Ringgold. All of you have a fantastic Saturday. All of you that have ordered, your orders will be going out today. And be well, be safe, and be nice to each other. Bye, everyone.